What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another video. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We are going to be talking about a little game called Diablo 4. Have you heard of it? Of course you have, and the early release is just around the corner. I believe it releases tomorrow, actually, if depending on your time zone, tomorrow or the following day. But I can't wait. I want it. I want it now. I want Diablo 4 now. Give it to me now. Let me in. Let me play. Full disclosure, I've never played a Diablo 4 game before up until this beta, the open beta, and then the server slam. And I loved it. I had an absolute blast. I got hooked immediately. I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I went ahead and I pre-ordered it, and then I continued to not be able to stop thinking about it, and all I wanted to do was theory craft builds and figure out what I was going to do at launch, and yeah. I'm very, very excited for a game like this. I haven't been this excited for a new release in quite a while. Today, I want to talk to you guys about the Druid build that I'm going to be using to start the game and sort of progress through the game. It's actually, it's a late game build, but it's the build that I am really excited to play, and I've been theory crafting it. It definitely needs a lot of legendary affixes to really be very strong, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And you know, for the first playthrough, guys, I don't really care about being the most efficient. I don't really care about getting to endgame the fastest. It's my first playthrough. You only get a first playthrough once, so I'm going to play it how I want to play it, and I'm going to really try to enjoy it and like I said, play a class that I am going to be excited for, and I'll have plenty of times throughout the other seasons to try to clear the end game the fastest and this and that. But for now, I'm excited for this build, and I thought it was cool, so I wanted to share it with you guys. Let's jump into it. So, to start leveling, we're probably going to want to take Storm Strike as our generator. It's just, in my opinion, the best generator there is. I know a lot of people talk about Wind Shear. Sorry, not Wind Strike. Wind Shear being really good. This is going to be a more melee-focused build. So I think Storm Strike is the better generator. It generates the most, other than Maul. It gives you damage reduction, it gives you immobilization, and it gives you vulnerable. Like, it's a really good generator. So we'll take Storm Strike in the leveling phase. Eventually, we'll go all the way up to the Fierce Storm Strike for the vulnerable, but we're going to unlock our core skills and our score skills. Obviously, it's a werewolf build. We're going to be taking Shred. We're going to take the 30 attack speed and heals you for 1% of your maximum life if struck. Then we're going to take Primal Shred, because that's the one that we're going to want eventually in the end game anyway. We are going to be taking some of these passives, but we'll go through passives a little later. We'll move through just the skills first. As we get into our defensive skills, we are not going to be taking Earthen Bulwark. There is an option to take it, but I think the first skill we're going to be taking is Blood Howl. Again, werewolf skill. It makes sense for the build, and it's a great skill. We're going to take the first upgrade, which is going to make it so that kills reduce the cooldown of Blood Howl by 1 second. So, 15-second cooldown. You pop Blood Howl. You run into a pack. You kill 5 mobs. All of a sudden, Blood Howl's down to 10 seconds. And it's still ticking. You're going to do it for this upgrade over here. Blood Howl is going to increase your attack speed by 15% for 4 seconds. So, from here, we still need some points to unlock our next tree. So we're going to go back up, and we are going to take Predatory Instinct, increasing our critical increasing our critical strike chance against close enemies by 2%. Crit's going to be pretty big in the build, and you'll see why later on. And we're going to open up our companion tree. Now, our companion tree is going to be also very, very important because it is a pack leader build. Now, the two most important companions, the two that you cannot live without, are going to be Poison Creeper and Wolves. Wolves summons 2 wolves. They deal 8% damage passively. Actively, they are going to focus an enemy, leaping to them and striking for 110% damage. This skill hits like a truck. You're going to take the 20% increased damage to immobilized, stunned, slowed, or poisoned enemies. This is going to be perfect because, as the name suggests, enemies are always going to be poisoned around us. It's just going to be a constant. And then you're also going to want to take the Brutal Wolves. When you critically strike, your wolves gain 20% attack speed for 3 seconds. The other companion skill that's really important is Poison Creeper. It's going to passively, it's the little vine that sort of swims through the earth, and every 7 seconds it applies 36% poisoning damage to an enemy in the area. Pretty good for a build that focuses on poisoning. Actively, however, this thing is going to immobilize and poison literally every mob that you see close to you remotely. And it's 90% poisoning damage over 2 seconds. It destroys full packs. We're going to take the Enhanced Poison Creeper. And then for the third upgrade, this is another sort of could go either way. Increasing your critical strike chance is going to be strong, especially because we're going to want to be critting often. So this is probably the one I'll take. Increasing the poisoning duration. This depends. I don't know how it scales with the damage. If it's doing 90% damage over 2 seconds, 90% damage over 5 seconds now is going to be dealing the same amount of damage, but just keeping the poison on them longer, which could be beneficial to our build because we rely very heavily on poison around the area. But I think the increased crit chance is going to be a little better for synergy in our builds. Moving down to the Wrath tree, as I believe it is called, we are actually not going to be taking any active skills in this tree. Rabies just seems a little underwhelming. It is a very good way to spread poison to every mob that you're fighting, but it's got a pretty long cooldown, 12 seconds. It's sort of an underwhelming amount of damage as an active ability. We are going to have a way to get this ability without actually having to spec into it, saving us some points and saving us a skill slot in our bar. However, there are a group of passives right down here that are going to be incredibly, incredibly strong to our build. This is where the synergy is going to start to kick in. So Neurotoxin. Poisoned enemies are slowed by 8%. Pretty good. Why not? Let's slow our enemies. Everybody's going to be poisoned, so let's slow them. However, the important thing is that we unlock these two down here. Envenom. Poisoned enemies take 10% additional critical strike damage. We're going to be building, like I said, heavy crit into this build. So we're going to fully max that out to 30% additional critical strike damage. It's quite a bit of damage boost if we can get that crit off. And Toxic Claws. Critical strikes with werewolf skills deal 8% of their base damage as poisoning damage over 4 seconds. With most of our skills being werewolf skills, except for our companions, our two main damage dealers, once we swap out well, we'll get to that in a sec. Once we swap out Storm Strike for Claw, we're going to be critically striking. When we crit, they're going to be poisoned. As they're poisoned, they're going to be taking more crit damage. It's boom, boom, damage increase everywhere. And it's going to be a very reliable way of us stacking poison on enemies if we have a high crit chance. Before I forget, we're going to go up. We're going to switch our generator at some point in the build to Claw. We're going to increase the attack speed by 10. And then here, we could make it so that we're getting a guaranteed poisoning damage, which I think is going to be useful because the 10% chance to attack twice is going to be really strong. I mean, you have a 10% chance to double the damage and spirit generation. 10% seems a little low. And I think getting a guaranteed poison just by attacking once, 6 seconds is a long time. 10% is not a lot, right? But we're not super concerned about the amount of poison. We just want them to be poisoned. So we have our poisoning from Fierce Claw. We didn't take the poison from Shred, but we could if we wanted to. We have our poison from Poison Creeper and from the active. And we have our poison from critical striking. So we're going to be spreading quite a bit of poison. And that's not all. That's not all of our ways of taking poison. There's going to be more. So we have the option for one more skill. You could take Rabies. I'm not a fan. You could take Lacerate as an ultimate. It's going to be a lot of damage. A lot of damage. 400% damage spread over all enemies in the area. But if you pop this during a boss fight, 400% damage is going to be a whole lot of damage. Especially when you take it and Lacerate, you have a high crit chance, which again is another werewolf skill. The first hit of Lacerate is going to critically strike with Supreme Lacerate and deal 150% increased damage on that critical strike, which is another poison application. So 23% of this base damage as poison, that's going to be a huge amount of damage because the first one's going to critically strike and do 150% increased damage. So that's going to be a lot of poison damage. So you're stacking poison. And if you pop this on the boss, all of that damage is going just to that one boss. So this is going to, and I think this is going to be a boss killer. We'll see. I don't know. Because you're also doing increased critical strike damage if it's poison. So if we can stack poison on the boss and then smack it with a Lacerate, bye-bye. Bye-bye, boss. In theory. Again, in theory. Or I have no idea what I'm talking about and I'm just rambling. Now, to unlock our capstones, we need to pump some more points into things. Call of the Wild, companion skills dealing 30% more damage is really strong, especially for our wolves. There's a couple you could take here. Bestial Rampage is pretty strong. Could be worth taking, but also Lupine Ferocity, every 6th werewolf skill hit critically strikes and deals 60% increased damage. There's no cooldown on this. Right? So this is a guaranteed crit and 60% increased damage on that crit without a cooldown every 6th, not every 6th werewolf skill, every 6th werewolf skill hit. That's what's important because Lacerate hits 10 times. So not only is your first one going to hit now with Lacerate, not only is your first hit going to critically strike, but so is your 6th hit. And then it hits 4 more times. So then your second hit of maybe Shred is also going to critically strike. So you could time it so that you hit Claw 3 times. 1, 2, 3, you generate your spirit. And then you hit Shred 3 times. And that third hit of Shred is now going to critically strike. Because it's a guaranteed critically strike. And it's going to be dealing 60% increased damage on that critically strike. But wait, there's more. Our enemy is now poisoned from, not Bloodhowl. Our enemy's been poisoned. And it's been poisoned from everything. It's going to be poisoned. Doesn't matter what you're using. Our enemy's now poisoned. It's taking 60% critical strike damage, or increased damage, on top of an additional 30% critical strike damage. So, and it's crit damage. So you're going to be absolutely destroying if you can time your attacks with Lupine Ferocity, if you can really sort of plan it out and do 3 hits with Claw, generate your spirit, and do your 3 hits with Shred, and then cycle back. 3 hits with Claw, 3 hits with Shred. Because there's no cooldown on it. So you can guarantee that that third hit with Shred is going to be hitting like an absolute truck. We're also going to take Predatory Instinct all the way up to 3 ranks. Critical strike chance against close enemies is increased by 6%. It's a melee build. We're always close. So it's a flat increase, 6% critical strike chance. There's some more passives that you can take. If you really want that more mobility, you can take a movement speed buff. Well, in werewolf form, we're going to be in werewolf form all the time. Or possibly going quick shift and then taking 2 points into heightened senses for a little bit of defense. Now, if we move on and talk about the gear and skills, this is what our skill bar is going to look like. Except for instead of Ravens, I think we're going to take Lacerate. Again, like I said, keep in mind, the legendaries that we're taking, I've put here, these are not, I think only like 3 of them can be dropped from the codex, from dungeons. So most of them you're going to have to be searching for. But that's cool because I think it'll be fun to try to get to that point where you're getting all of these rare legendary aspects. If you can get these to drop, it's really going to pull the build together. Starting with some of the more important ones, I think probably the most important one in the build is going to be aspect of the Blurred Beast. I think is probably going to be our best one. Now this makes it so that while dashing, Shred seeks out nearby poisoned enemies, instantly dealing 60 to 90% of the poisoning damage to them. So, while dashing, we now dash on all 3 of our Shred attacks. All 3. Which means that if enemies are poisoned in the area, say we popped anything, honestly. Say we popped our main attack, say we popped our Poison Creeper, say we've been critically striking a bunch of elites in the area. While dashing, it's going to deal poisoned enemies not up to 90% of their damage currently on them instantly. But it's not going to consume the poison. So you're still getting that damage over time of the poison. You're just adding an instant 90% damage to all enemies around. Like that. While continuing to have that dot on them. So that's like the bread and butter of the build. That's probably, once you get that legendary aspect, like that's where it all really starts to shine and the damage starts to really come through. But I think the other 2 very, very important aspects of the builds that are going to really build it over the top are going to be aspect of the Alpha and aspect of the Stampede. Aspect of the Alpha is going to make it so our Wolf companions, which we take and we love for our passive and active damage, are now Werewolf companions, dealing 75 to 100% additional damage, that's both on their passive and their active, and can spread rabies. So remember, we talked about not taking rabies to save our points. This is because now our wolves can spread rabies for us passively, and we don't have to waste our points on this. So our wolves now, when they're just attacking things, are spreading rabies, and rabies, as soon as one enemy is rabied, it can be spread to all surrounding targets. So all it takes is one enemy getting spread by rabies, and now we have more poison damage passively being procced by both our wolves and our Poison Creeper. That's more damage for our Blurred Beast to pop and destroy. Not to mention, dealing an additional 75 to 100% damage on the active that already does buku damage is another source of single target damage that's going to be just spectacular. So strong. So strong. In my mind, this build is going to be so much fun to play. Aspect of the... What's the other one I said? Stampede. Aspect of the Stampede is also really strong. You gain 1 additional companion. In addition, your companion skills deal 10 to 20% bonus damage. So I'd say those 3 are the most important aspects to find. The other ones are pretty good as well, but they're not necessarily vital to the build. But those 3, aspect of the Alpha, aspect of the Stampede, and aspect of the Blurred Beast, are going to be the bread and butter aspects of the build. If you can find those 3 early on, it's gonna make your life so much easier. Night Howler's aspect is actually one of the only ones that you can take it from the Codex, and you can get it really early on, and it's really gonna help your poison spread. Is going to help your damage, because it's going to make it so that Blood Howl, which is our passive heal and attack speed, also is going to increase your critical strike chance by 5 to 10%. And Blood Howl now also affects nearby companions and players for 3 seconds. This is going to allow us to heal our wolves and heal our party members on top of giving them attack speed and crit. It's all around a good aspect. You can get it super early in Fractured Peaks in the first act. I think it's going to be really strong, especially for team play too. For boss fights, affecting your allies, healing all your allies and giving them crit strike is going to be very valuable in team play. Assimilation aspect is a really good one that you could use instead. 8% increased dodge chance versus enemies affected by damage over time effects. And then when you dodge, you get 5 to 10% of your primary resource. Now, this is important because we're going to be going heavy into dexterity to increase our crit chance, right? This is also increasing our dodge chance. And now that we have assimilation aspect, we're increasing our dodge by 8% against the enemies affected over damage over time effects. Poison is a damage over time effects. Everything is going to be giving us this 8% increased dodge chance. And it's a primary resource generator if we get that free passive dodge proc. So, I mean, 5 to 10, that's almost if you can get 10 out of it, that's a whole claw. It's a whole generated claw hit for free on a dodge, and that's just going to be passively proccing. Eluding aspect is, it's pretty nice. Becoming injured while crowd controlled grants you unstoppable for 4 seconds. 40 to 20 second cooldown is pretty long, but the reason we're taking this is because the build itself actually has no unstoppable in its skills. Vigorous aspect, gain 10 to 15% damage reduction while you shapeshifted into a werewolf. Mad Wolf's Glee, this is a unique, so we're not going to be getting this until very, very late, but you're getting physical damage, you're getting poison damage, you're getting damage reduction from poisoned enemies. Everything is going to be a poisoned enemy. You're getting some movement speed, which is nice, but then you're also getting the werewolf form is now your true form, and you gain 2 ranks to all werewolf skills. 1, 2, 3, 4. All of them getting buffed. And we get to always stay as a werewolf walking around town, which is just fucking awesome, to be honest. And Dariel's Visage, another unique helm. Again, very sort of late game, but it increases all your stats, gives you some lifesteal, which is, is what it is. Poison resistance, which, again, is what it is. We're the one dealing the poison, so it doesn't really work. But on lucky hit, you have up to 15 to 20% chance to trigger a poison nova that applies X poisoning damage over 5 seconds to enemies in the area. I just thought this was really cool. Lucky hit is sort of hard to proc, and a 20% chance on a lucky hit is also not going to be all the time. But if it does trigger it passively, there you go. Poison damage, free poison damage to everything in the area. Moving to Spirit Boons, should be sort of short, but there's one Spirit Boon in here that sort of spiked my interest in this build particularly. So what have we said? We've said that we're going for high crit chance, and we're going for companion damage, right? Put both of those together, and this little Spirit Boon right here, Pack Leader, is going to benefit and make everything really, really, really strong when it procs. On lucky hit, critical strikes have up to a 20% chance to reset the cooldowns of your companion skills. There's a lot to unpack there. You have to get a lucky hit. You have to get a critical strike on the lucky hit. And then it's only a 20% chance to reset the cooldowns of your companion skills. I think it's going to be hard to proc this Spirit Boon. I really do think it is. It's not going to proc all the time. But when it does, you're resetting the cooldowns of both your wolves and your vine creeper. That's going to be incredible. For our other Spirit Boons under the deer category, we're taking reduce the duration of control impairing effects by 15%. Under Eagle, we're going to actually take, this is where we're going to specialize and take 2. We're going to take increased critical strike chance, obviously. And we're going to take 30% critical strike damage. And then finally, under Snake, we're going to take Masochist. Critical strikes with shape-shifting skills heal you for 3% maximum life. That's the build. I could go into Paragon board. I don't really know. I haven't really fleshed out exactly where I want to go. The only thing I do know is that Heightened Malice, the Heightened Malice board with the, where is it? Legendary node that gives you the passive that while there are 3 or more poisoned enemies nearby, you deal 45% increased damage. Yeah, that's the build we're going to be running. It's going to take a while to get there, but I think the synergies are going to be really cool, and I think it's going to be incredibly fun. And I mean, we'll see. It could be awful. It could be impossible to get all those legendary aspects, or I could just be stupid and not know what the fuck I'm talking about. But if you're excited for Diablo 4 and you like this build, let me know. As all the YouTubers say, drop a like and subscribe and do a comment or something like that. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will hopefully see you out in Sanctuary this Friday. Peace.